You're born in a hole in the snow. It's cramped, dark, and cold. Your mom is curled around you and your siblings, but she's exhausted. She's been running on empty stomach for weeks, hunting, digging this den, and keeping herself alive long enough to get you here. The wind howls outside, and the snow presses in on all sides, but you don't notice yet. And that's because you're totally blind. Your only instinct is to crawl closer to your mom and fight for the best spot. You're already competing with your siblings, even though none of you can stand yet. You're small and at the bottom of the Arctic food chain, and you have no idea that it's only going to get worse from here. Your so-called family looks like this. There's one alpha pair, your mom and your dad, and they run the whole show. Your dad is the dominant male, and he's in charge of protecting the pack's territory, leading the hunts, and making sure no one steps out of line. Your mom is the lead female. She raises the pups and holds just as much authority as your dad when it comes to keeping the pack together. Then there are the subordinates, 3 other wolves. They're adults, but they're not in charge. They're the hunters and babysitters, doing whatever your parents tell them to do. They don't eat until the alphas have had their fill, and they stay in the pack because it's safer than being out in the Arctic alone. The pack has a strict pecking order, and you're at the very bottom of it. No one's going to listen to you, and no one's going to take care of you except your mom, and even that's conditional. If the pack has to choose between you and survival, you're not going to like their decision. This is the Arctic. There's no room for sympathy here. For now, though, the pack tolerates your existence. Your dad patrols the territory, marking the borders, and making sure no rival wolves or predators get too close. Your mom stays close to the den, keeping you and your siblings alive. The other wolves bring back food, but it's barely enough to go around. The pack eats first, and whatever scraps are left might make it to your mom, if she's lucky. And if she's lucky, you'll get what's left of what's left. The pack isn't a family in the human sense. It's a survival unit. Everyone has a role, and yours, right now, is to stay alive without slowing them down. No one is going to save you if you fall behind. The sooner you figure that out, the better. After a couple of weeks, your eyes open. The world is bright and cold, and the Arctic wind doesn't care that you're still figuring out how to exist. You crawl out of the den for the first time and immediately regret it. The snow is everywhere, under your paws, in your fur, and in your face. You don't understand why your siblings are so excited to explore. They're bigger than you, stronger than you, and better at shoving you aside. The adults don't pay attention to you. They're too busy doing important things like scanning the horizon for threats or returning from hunts with scraps of meat. You're still entirely dependent on your mom, but she's got 4 mouths to feed and barely enough food to do it. The pack eats first, and the scraps are picked clean before you even get a sniff. You try to chew on frozen bones, but it's more effort than it's worth. When the pack moves, you follow, even though you're not built for it yet. Your legs are weak, your paws sink into the snow, and you fall behind constantly. Your mom stops to nudge you forward, but it's not kindness, it's practicality. A dead pup is a waste, and the pack can't afford to waste anything. Every time she pushes you forward, you feel smaller and weaker. You start to understand that no one is going to carry you. Eventually, the pack decides it's time for you to learn the basics of survival. They take you and your siblings out to watch the adults hunt. You don't get an explanation. You're just expected to watch and figure it out. The first target is a hare. The adults spread out, silent and deliberate, while you and your siblings stay behind. You're supposed to stay quiet, but you're hungry, impatient, and bad at following orders. The hare hears you before anyone moves, and it bolts. Your dad glares at you, and your mom doesn't even look in your direction. The pack regroups and moves on, leaving you to stumble after them. The next few hunts are no better. You try to copy the adults, crouching low and stalking through the snow, but you're too loud and too clumsy. Prey escapes every time, and the pack doesn't bother hiding their frustration. You're eating less and less now, and the gap between you and your siblings is starting to show. They're growing faster, getting stronger, and learning how to contribute, while you're still trailing behind. Winter comes, and it's worse than you imagined. The cold is constant, and the snow never seems to stop falling. Food is scarcer than ever, and the pack is constantly on the move, searching for anything to eat. You're forced to follow, even when your legs are numb and your stomach feels like it's caving in on itself. The adults manage to bring down a caribou one day, but by the time you get there, it's nothing but bones. You gnaw on what's left, trying to convince yourself you're full. The pack doesn't slow down. You keep moving, even though every step feels like it might be your last. The nights are the worst. The pack huddles together for warmth, and you're shoved to the outside. The wind cuts through your fur, and you shiver until morning. You start to wonder if you'll ever feel warm again. By the time spring returns, you've survived your first year, but barely. You're bigger now, but so is everyone else, and you're still at the bottom of the hierarchy. The new pups arrive, and they take your place in the pack. Your mom is too busy with them to care about you anymore. The adults push you aside when food is scarce, and you're left with nothing most days. Your dad, the alpha, starts to see you as a threat. You're not much of one, but he doesn't take chances. Every time you try to eat, he shoves you back. Every time you get too close to the new pups, he growls. It's not subtle. You're not wanted here. One day, the pack moves without you. You watch them disappear into the distance and realize they're not coming back. You're on your own now. At first, being on your own feels liberating. There's no more growling in your direction, no more shoving for scraps. You wander the tundra, following your instincts, surviving on whatever you can catch or scavenge. It's hard, but you're built for this. Hares are your usual target. They're small and fast, but you're faster now. Days turn into weeks, and you find your rhythm. You move constantly, hunting, resting, and keeping your distance from larger predators. Every now and then, you cross into the territory of another pack. Sometimes you catch their scent and steer clear. Other times, you come face to face with them. When that happens, you lower your head and back away. A fight isn't worth it. Not yet. You keep moving, covering miles of frozen ground, your nose always to the wind. You're not looking for anything in particular, but the Arctic has a way of surprising you. One day, while traveling across an open plain, you catch a scent on the wind. It's not food. It's not a rival pack. It's another wolf, a lone female. You follow the trail cautiously, your ears up, your steps quiet. Eventually, you see her in the distance. She's like you, thin, cautious, and alone. You approach slowly, careful not to seem like a threat. She doesn't run, and that's a good sign. The two of you circle each other, sniffing, sizing each other up. Neither of you has much to offer, just survival skills and the stubbornness that's kept you alive this long. It's not a romantic story, but out here that doesn't matter. You're both alone, and the Arctic is a lot easier to face with someone by your side. You start traveling together. At first, it's awkward. Two wolves used to being on their own, but over time you learn how to work as a team. Hunting becomes easier with the two of you. You take down larger prey, sharing the kills and eating more than you've eaten in months. You take turns watching for predators while the other sleeps. Slowly, you stop feeling like a lone wolf. As the seasons pass, the two of you settle into a routine. You wander the tundra together, hunting, resting, and marking a small territory of your own. Then one spring, everything changes. Your mate gives birth to 3 pups in a den she dug out in the snow while you were out hunting. The responsibility feels heavy, but it also feels right. You teach the pups how to walk, how to play, and eventually how to hunt. You lead them across the tundra, showing them where to find food and how to survive. It's hard work, but it's worth it. Your little pack is growing stronger every day. Life as the leader of your pack is relentless. Every day is a struggle to find food, protect your territory, and keep your pups alive. You hunt tirelessly, leading the charge against caribou, chasing down hares, and scavenging whatever you can to feed your family. Your mate helps, and the pups are growing stronger, but the weight of responsibility falls on you. You push yourself harder than ever because you have no choice. One day, while hunting, things go wrong. You're chasing a caribou, pushing through deep snow, when it kicks out and catches your leg with its hoof. The pain shoots through you, sharp and sudden, but you finish the hunt anyway. The pack eats, and for a moment, the injury doesn't seem like much. Just a scratch, you think. It's nothing compared to the challenges you've faced before. But days later, the pain hasn't gone away. In fact, it's worse. Your leg swells, and every step feels like fire. You start limping, falling behind your pack more often. The pups, who once looked up to you, don't understand why you're slower now. You still try to hunt, but the infection spreads. It's in your bloodstream now, and you can feel it sapping your strength. You stop eating, you stop moving. You lie down in the snow, far from the pack. They don't wait for you. They can't afford to. You don't blame them. You know how this works. You've seen it before. This is just the way of things in the Arctic. The infection takes hold, and the cold sinks into your bones. Your breaths become slower, shallower, until they stop altogether. There's no ceremony. You die the same way you lived, alone in the vast, unrelenting wilderness. The Arctic doesn't notice. The Arctic doesn't care. It just keeps going, and so will your pack. Hunting, surviving, and carrying on without you. The cycle continues. The Arctic always wins. Life as an Arctic wolf might be rough, but there's another animal out there that has it way worse. Trust me, it's wild. Check out the video and see for yourself.